Watch today on My Refuge, a veteran's healing on 40 acres in Texas.
Imagine coming home after 3 tours in Afghanistan. The plane lands, the uniform still smells of sand and diesel. And everyone around you is smiling, clapping, saying, "Welcome back, hero." But inside, the war never really ended. That was the reality for Alejandro Yuregui when he stepped off the plane in San Antonio in the summer of 2022. The Texas heat hitting his face like a familiar enemy. Alejandro was 38 years old, but his eyes looked much older. The short black hair at his temples had turned gray too soon. The scar on his left forearm from shrapnel still burned when the barometric pressure dropped. Every night, the same nightmare returned. The sound of incoming mortar rounds, the smell of burning fuel and blood, the weight of his best friend's body in his arms as the medevac helicopter lifted off. He would wake up drenched in sweat, heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his teeth. But during the day, the silence was almost worse. The small apartment in Killeen felt like a cage. The walls were too close. The traffic outside sounded like distant convoys. He tried to go back to civilian life, a job at the auto shop, fixing trucks. The smell of grease and metal reminding him of the motor pool in Kandahar, but every loud noise made him flinch. His family tried. His mother cooked his favorite enchiladas, the spicy aroma filling the kitchen. But he could only eat a few bites before the memories choked him. His younger sister would hug him tight, her perfume sweet and familiar. But he felt nothing but guilt. Guilt for surviving when so many didn't. Guilt for the man he had become, a stranger even to himself. Nights were the hardest. He would sit on the tiny balcony, the warm Texas night air thick with the scent of mesquite and distant rain, staring at the stars that looked the same as the ones over the Hindu Kush. The same stars that had watched his brothers die. The VA doctors gave him pills that made the nightmares fuzzy but never gone. The support groups were full of men with the same 1,000-yard stare. Their voices low as they shared stories that made Alejandro's chest tighten until he couldn't breathe. He felt trapped, not by the enemy anymore, but by his own mind. The weight of everything he had seen, everything he had done, everything he had lost pressed down on him like the rucksack he carried for 12 years. One evening, after a particularly bad day when a car backfired in the parking lot and he hit the ground in front of strangers, Alejandro sat on the tailgate of his truck at a deserted overlook. The sun setting over the Texas hills in streaks of orange and purple. Buddy laid his golden head on Alejandro's lap, the dog's warm breath steady against his thigh. Tears finally came, hot, silent, the kind that burned all the way down. He whispered into the empty air, voice cracking, "I don't know how to be home anymore. I don't know who I am without the war." The decision came that same night. He sold almost everything he owned, packed the truck with only what fit, and drove west into the hill country with nothing but a blurry Zillow listing for 40 acres of rocky, overgrown land and a small, run-down red barn. The realtor had warned him, "It's rough country, son. Not much there." Alejandro had answered quietly, "That's exactly what I need." What he didn't know was that those 40 acres and one scared golden retriever were about to save his life. The GPS blinked out a few miles back, but Alejandro knew he was close. He could feel it in the way the air thickened, the way the sun beat down on the cracked dashboard of his rust bucket truck. The last turn was onto a dirt road that seemed more like a suggestion than an actual path, spitting gravel against the undercarriage. When the truck finally shuddered to a halt, this was it. 40 acres of Texas hill country. His refuge, his last stand. He stepped out and the heat hit him like a physical blow. 100 degrees, easy. Dust, fine as powdered sugar, instantly coated his boots. He looked out over the land, and a bitter laugh escaped his lips. The real estate photos had been generous. What he saw was a battlefield of rock and thistle, skeletal live oaks clawing at the sky. The land wasn't just rugged, it was broken, just like him. Buddy, his golden retriever, hopped out of the passenger seat, his tail giving a tentative wag. He nudged his wet nose into Alejandro's hand, a silent question in his amber eyes. Alejandro ran a hand over his face, the grit scraping his skin. He was 38, but some mornings he looked in the mirror and saw a man twice that age. The reflection was a stranger, haunted by the ghosts of Helmand Province. The VA had given him a diagnosis: PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. 4 letters that were supposed to explain the night sweats, the flinching at loud noises, the way his own shadow could send a jolt of pure ice through his veins. But the letters didn't explain the hollowness, the feeling of being a phantom in his own life. He walked toward the ramshackle cabin that was supposed to be his new home. The porch sagged. The paint was a distant memory, and a window was boarded up with a piece of weathered plywood. He pushed the door open, the hinges groaning in protest. Inside, the air was stale and thick, with the smell of decay and forgotten things. A layer of dust covered everything. This wasn't a fresh start, it was a tomb. The first week was a blur of suffocating heat and crushing silence. The quiet he'd craved in the city was different here. It was an active, pressing thing, filled with the hum of insects and the distant cry of a hawk. It gave his thoughts too much room to roam, and they always wandered back to the same dark places. The flash of an IED, the smell of cordite, the faces of men he'd never see again. He'd sit on the porch steps, staring at nothing, Buddy's head resting on his knee, the only solid thing in his dissolving world. The money from his disability checks barely covered the land payment and cheap canned food. Every ping from his phone was another bill collector, another reminder of how badly he was failing. One afternoon, the sky turned a bruised, angry purple. The temperature dropped, and the wind began to howl, whipping dust and leaves into a frenzy. A storm was rolling in. Alejandro watched from the doorway as the first fat drops of rain splattered against the dry earth. Buddy, who usually hated storms, started barking excitedly, running in circles near an old, gnarled mesquite tree. He was digging at something, his paws sending clumps of mud flying. "Buddy, get in here," Alejandro yelled over the rising wind. But the dog just barked again, more insistently this time. Annoyed, Alejandro trudged out into the rain, which was now coming down in sheets. He reached the tree, soaked to the bone, and saw what had captured Buddy's attention. Half buried in the mud was a rusty, dirt-caked horseshoe. He knelt down and worked it free from the ground. As he held it in his palm, the cold metal, heavy and real, a memory surfaced, sharp and clear. His abuelo, his grandfather, a man whose hands were as calloused as the land he worked, holding up a similar horseshoe. Alejandro stared at the horseshoe, the rain plastering his hair to his forehead. He looked from the rusty metal to the broken land, then back to Buddy, who was now sitting patiently, tail thumping a happy rhythm against the wet ground. For the first time in a long time, something shifted inside him. It wasn't hope, not yet, but it was a flicker, a tiny, defiant spark in the vast darkness. The storm raged around him. But in that moment, he felt a strange sense of calm. The land was broken. He was broken. Maybe they could heal together. He took a deep breath, the rain-washed air filling his lungs. I had an old axe in the truck. The dead wood on the oaks could be cleared. The fence line could be mended. There was work to be done. He started walking back toward the cabin, the horseshoe clutched tight in his hand. As he stepped onto the porch, shaking water from his hair, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He almost ignored it, assuming it was another creditor. But he glanced at the screen. The caller ID was a number he recognized all too well. It was the VA. He hesitated, his thumb hovering over the screen, the rain and wind roaring in his ears. Then he answered. The phone call from the VA came on a scorching July afternoon. The voice on the other end was kind but firm. They were cutting his therapy sessions and recommending a higher dose of medication. Alejandro stood in the middle of the dusty field, the sun burning the back of his neck, phone pressed to his ear, and felt the last thread holding him together snap. He dropped to his knees in the red dirt, the heat radiating through his jeans. Buddy whining softly beside him, licking the tears that fell onto the dry earth. For the first time since coming home, he truly believed the war had won. That same night, something inside Alejandro broke open. He walked to the old barn under a sky full of stars, the warm Texas air thick with the scent of mesquite and wild sage, the cicadas singing their endless summer song. Buddy stayed glued to his side, the dog's golden fur warm against his leg, tail brushing the tall grass with a soft swish. Alejandro sat on the sagging steps of the barn, the weathered wood rough under his palms. And for hours he talked, really talked, to the only being who had never left him. He spoke of the friends he lost, the nights he still smelled burning fuel, the guilt that woke him screaming. Buddy listened with those gentle eyes, occasionally resting his head on Alejandro's knee, the warmth of the dog's body seeping through the fabric like a quiet promise. The next morning, Alejandro woke before dawn. The sky was turning soft pink and gold, the first light painting the rocky hills in warm hues. He felt different. He started small, cleared another patch of land with his bare hands, the soil warm and crumbly between his fingers, the sweat stinging his eyes but feeling clean this time. He fixed the leaking roof of the barn, the hammer strikes echoing across the empty fields like a heartbeat returning. He built a small corral for 2 goats he bought with the last of his savings, their soft bleats and the smell of fresh hay filling the air. Buddy herded them gently, his golden fur glowing in the sunlight. Weeks turned into months. The garden he planted began to grow, tomatoes ripening red and heavy on the vine, the sweet scent drifting on the breeze. The small creek started flowing again after summer rains, the water cool and clear as it ran over the rocks. Alejandro built a simple wooden bench by the water, and every evening he sat there with Buddy, the dog's head in his lap, watching the sun set in streaks of orange and purple. The scar on his forearm still ached, but now it felt like a map of where he had been, not a reminder of where he was stuck. Neighbors started stopping by, first out of curiosity, then out of respect. A retired Marine from down the road brought fence posts and stayed for coffee. A local woman who ran a veteran support group asked if he would let other vets come help on the land. Slowly, the 40 acres became more than a hiding place. It became a sanctuary. Alejandro started inviting small groups of veterans, just a few at a time, to work the land with him. They cleared brush together, the sweat and laughter mixing in the hot Texas air. They sat around a fire pit at night, the wood crackling, the smell of mesquite smoke rising, sharing stories without judgment. Buddy moved from person to person, offering his calm, golden presence like medicine. One afternoon, while harvesting the first ripe tomatoes, the juice running down his hands, Alejandro looked up at the sky and felt it real peace. The weight that had crushed him for years was still there, but it was lighter now. Shared with the land, and with Buddy, and with the men who understood. He whispered to the wind, voice thick with emotion, "I finally came home. Not to a house, but to myself." Today, 3 years later, the red barn stands strong with a new roof. The fields are green with vegetables and wildflowers, and the small creek sparkles under the Texas sun. Alejandro runs a modest veterans healing program on the land. No fancy signs, just hard work, good coffee, and the quiet company of a golden retriever who never left his side. The man who once wanted to end it all now wakes up every morning to the sound of goats bleating and Bud's tail thumping on the wooden floor, ready for another day of healing. Alejandro's journey reminds us that sometimes the deepest wounds are the ones no one can see. And the greatest healing often comes from the simplest things: dirt under your nails, the steady breath of a loyal dog, the quiet strength of land that asks nothing but that you show up. If this story touched something deep inside your own heart tonight, I'd be truly grateful if you gently tapped the like button. It helps these real stories of courage and second chances reach more people who might be walking through their own silent battles. And when the moment feels right for you, subscribing and turning on notifications means you'll be here with us at My Refuge for every new tale of transformation on American land. If the spirit moves you, I'd love to read your thoughts in the comments. What does the word refuge mean to you personally? Is it a piece of land you dream of one day calling home? A garden that brings you peace? A slower pace of life you long for? Or simply that beautiful feeling of finally coming home to yourself? We read every single comment, and they matter more than you know. Sharing this video with one person who might need a little light right now, that would be the kindest thing you could do today. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for spending this time with Alejandro, Buddy, and us here at My Refuge. Until next time, may you find your own refuge, wherever it may be, quietly waiting for you in the silence of the land.